maybe mention a bit about yourself, but then we'll dive straight into Metaplex. You know, it's been through a few different eras, the NFT boom, the meme coin wave, and then internet capital markets. And then you can talk about how each of those different eras, so to speak, shaped Metaplex in that journey.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. We're live now, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. Yes, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Steven. I'm the founder of Metaplex. Metaplex is the standard for tokens and NFTs on the Solana blockchain and the SVM. So 99% of the assets created on the network use Metaplex, and we play a role similar to ERC20 or ERC721 for the Ethereum and the EVM ecosystems. We actually started and we're best known for creating the first NFT standard, and the first users, the first adopters of the technology were really digital artists and community builders. And so if you remember the big profile photo NFT boom, that was powered by a program that we created called Candy Machine. And that led us then into the meme coin era and now internet capital markets. And most recently we announced a protocol called Genesis, which is effectively a candy machine for fungible tokens. It's an on-chain protocol for launching your token directly on the Solana network, but doing so in a way that eliminates front-running, sniping, and all of the games that have really broken trust and confidence that in the public's eyes in terms of crypto. And so our goal is really to rebuild that trust and provide a framework for founders to launch directly to their communities and effectively use blockchains as a form of community financing for new technology endeavors.
Yeah. You mentioned a key point there about that loss of trust, and Metaplex was also coincidentally around the time of the FTX collapse and a lot of other major negative crypto events. How would you say that shaped the ethos of Metaplex and in building resilient infrastructure?
It's true. You know, we've walked a long journey, and I'm really grateful. Actually, our core team really stuck it out through the collapse of FTX, and in a way, our therapy now is building products that structurally solve the issues that defined that era, which is having tokens that represent a direct connection to the product and the revenues of a technology. And ultimately, that is best for both the founders and their teams and the capital markets that are supporting them. And so it's really, frankly, very kind of exciting, and I think motivating for us as a team to be able to help this next generation of projects that are launching on Solana to do it the right way.
Okay, yeah, I see it as, I see Metaplex as a winner out of all this, not just a survivor, but it's also like an invisible layer, dominant, but behind the scenes. Is this, a lot of projects use Metaplex and a lot of users may touch different products without even realizing it. Do you think this is a feature to show how seamless the integration it is and how smooth it is, or do you see this more as Metaplex needs more branding outreach?
Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, it was intentional from the start. Even when I did the first brand design for Metaplex, it's black and white, it's simple, it's minimalist. It was designed to be a canvas for the artist and the projects. And our success is the success of the projects that are launching on Metaplex, and so that's really where we focused. But at the same time, as we all know, crypto is largely driven on narrative, and oftentimes people come up to us and they're like, "How can you literally be powering everything on Solana and no one knows who you are?" So, in a sense, that's why I'm here today, partially, to make the world aware of the role that Metaplex plays in the Solana ecosystem, but also to sort of raise our hand to make founders and teams aware of us to reach out as they're preparing to launch a token, for them to know that we're available as a resource to be in their corner to help them through that process.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you here.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You mentioned, Genesis. This is a new service offering from Metaplex. It's not maybe it's kind of different from the others, but still fits into that similar flywheel. Can you just explain a little bit more about what Genesis is and who's using it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually, excited. Later today, we'll have a team called Play Solana launching with Genesis. They've built a mobile device for crypto gaming and have really rethought the stack in terms of the experience of crypto gaming and the transaction flow and the onboarding flow. And we've had a handful of really exceptional projects launched to date. DeFi Tuna, Collector Crypt, Portals, and have had a chance through that process working with them to really R&D and dial in Genesis as a launch protocol, which now supports a number of different launch mechanics. So pre-sales with allow lists, which are really effective in building hype ahead of the token launch. So in the same way in the NFT era, you can run allow list campaigns where people have to participate in certain ways in order to gain access to the allow list, and you price the token favorably, and then you're able to build this community energy before the launch. We have the launch pool, which Collector Crypt debuted, which allows anyone to participate. It's a way of getting the widest distribution possible. You're guaranteed an allocation in the token launch by depositing into the pool, and it gives you real on-chain discovery. And with Collector Crypt, there was over 700 unique participants in that token launch. And what we saw following it in the week after, and maybe some of you noticed this, it felt like for a week almost the channel on crypto Twitter changed to talking about Pokemon card tokenization and RWAs, and that was largely because of this launch group that was now directly tied into the success of the product. And I think actually the most exciting part of that was seeing not just the attention of the product, but the actual fundamentals of the product, the usage, the revenue of that platform increase, because this launch group that had an opportunity to get in early was then out evangelizing and bringing in that next wave of users. And the third mechanic is an on-chain auction. So there's been a lot of talk about Dutch auctions and how that is, like, from a theoretic perspective, is the most efficient, precise way of getting capital formation. Dutch auctions are a little bit complicated from a user experience perspective. So what we built is very similar. It's technically called a time-based uniform price auction, which allows anyone to place a bid on-chain. Again, this is fully on-chain on Solana. You can see all of the bids. And then the allocation clears at the lowest bid. So similar to a Dutch auction, everyone gets the same price. You get the benefit of that launch group. And the reason for that versus a launch pool is that when you're talking about really large scale token launches, where you have funds that want to participate in size, 7, potentially 8-figure bids into new token launches, they need to be able to express that bid and know the clearing price. And in a launch pool, it's kind of moving around in real time. And so we think that auction system is going to be best for tokens that are launching and appealing to more of an institutional audience. But the three of those together, it was funny, we kind of went into it, we're like, we're going to do some experimentation, we're going to see what works here. And what we found is actually all of them worked, but for different reasons. And so now we have a playbook where we can work with teams to help them decide, like, what type of project are you launching? What are your goals? Is it really about price discovery? Is it really about community? Who are you catering to? And that's allowing us to build something that really accounts for the diversity of assets and projects that are launching on chain ultimately.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up there, because you're helping teams now in this space launch and structure and distribute their tokens. It's and pardon my language here for the lawyers in the audience, it's kind of akin to investment banking services. How do you see that comparison as a fair one?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's up to the market to underwrite these projects. I don't view that as our role, but I do think that our role is working with the team to make sure that all of the relevant information that's necessary for market participants to construct their own valuations, to come up with their own theses, and then to make sure that that information is, like, credibly and verifiably on chain. So part of what Genesis provides is you can see the token economics. Like, it's not a mystery. You can see where liquidity will graduate. You can see how the allocation is split. You can see the on-chain vesting contracts. And so ultimately our goal is to create transparency and efficiency in these markets, and there clearly is a demand for these tokens. Like you see it, right? And you see it from some of the just like the big disastrous token launches, like like the Libra token launch that happened a year or so ago. That there really is a large global internet capital market that wants to participate in these early stage ventures, but the technology hasn't existed to create accountability on both sides and to create transparency, and that's really what we view our role as ultimately.
There was a talk earlier today about crypto collapsing the distinction between public and private markets. If on-chain capital markets get a little bit more popular, do you see that affecting the venture capital market somehow?
100%. I really think we're going through the most important transformation in venture, probably since its inception. I grew up in Silicon Valley, and it is true. Like for the when you look back through the evolution of information technology, like transistors to the mainframe era to PCs to web to mobile. I'm skipping a lot in between. You really had to be physically in Silicon Valley to participate either as an investor or as a builder in one of these companies. But now Silicon Valley is on chain. Like the best teams are looking at tokenization and access to these global markets as the new Silicon Valley. And our goal is to really open up both the capital markets and the talent pool. So that energy, like what really makes Silicon Valley special, which is the combination of those two things, can really happen on a global scale.
And venture, they make these bets for return on investment. With Metaplex, speaking of returns, we're looking at a protocol that I checked it this morning. Over the last 4 full quarters, have done over $24 million in revenue. It definitely makes it one of the top protocols by annualized revenue, but it also makes it amongst the cheapest. And on top of that, it has buybacks, right? And buybacks are a big topic as of late. There's some controversy behind it because they think maybe token should be reinvesting it, maybe the token should be distributed to shareholders. How do you think about this revenue value accrual mechanism?
I think it's important for projects to signal and create a direct connection between the economics of their protocol and the token holders. And ultimately, the buybacks, they provide that link so that people who purchase a token know that as the protocol grows, that they're going to benefit in that success. And not all buybacks are the same. So in our case, when tokens are bought back, they're then contributed to our DAO. And our DAO is empowered actually to vote on how that 50% of our protocol revenue is used. So if our DAO was to issue a proposal saying, like, let's stop the buybacks, let's take that revenue and let's reinvest it in community grants, it would be empowered to do so. And our goal is to build Metaplex as a community-driven platform. And of course, there's a balancing act there. Like, there's a reason why every direct democracy in history has ultimately led to a representative system. Like, people don't want to vote on every single issue, but they want to know that if there is an issue that's important enough, that there is a venue to express that. And so ultimately, I think, for us, it's working in partnership with our token holders and our community to do what's most efficient and ultimately moves us closer to the vision, which is building the on-chain Silicon Valley, building the internet capital markets. And we've been really fortunate to have built what is the largest tokenization platform in all of crypto, which has brought in a number of really incredible funds and individuals and creators and artists and founders that make up that community.
Yeah, awesome. And one of you mentioned the largest tokenization platform. I mean, I know that, and I quoted the 20-something million in revenue over the past 4 quarters. And a part of the reasons why I can get this stats is because Metaplex is one of the few protocols to put out a monthly update. Here in Europe, they put out updates every 6 months, and in the US, they're looking to maybe move away from the quarterly distribution. Why monthly? Does it help you? Things are very fast-paced. Like, what's your thought process around that?
to give credit to Mac, our head of strategy, for putting together those updates. But this is crypto. This is startups. Like, all of this data is on chain. In fact, the updates are happening in real time. Like, you can visit our public dashboards or on Top Ledger. But the monthly cadence is good for us, and in fact, it really started as like an internal process, which is like every month we're sitting down, we're looking through these numbers, we're thinking about strategy, and in the spirit of building with our community, it just made sense to share that. And I think a lot of good ideas have come from that, and like that engagement has made has hardened our strategy and our thinking as well.
Yeah, as an investor, I definitely appreciate it. So just to pivot a little bit, obviously Solana is where it's at, it's where Metaplex is at, it's where most of the volume is, most of the tokens are being created. I can go on. But Metaplex is also on other SVM chains, Fogo, Atlas, some of the others. Can you give some color around that as well?
So it's interesting. Like, I have to admit, this isn't something that we really expected would be a significant amount of our work. And to be honest, it actually isn't a ton of work, because the MPL runs on the SVM. So we can deploy the MPL and it works out of the box. But really what happened is we started getting calls from these new networks being like, we're talking to these other teams and they like literally can't deploy their programs without you, because 99% of all tokens and NFTs use Metaplex. And so we then had an opportunity to build what has effectively become the closest thing to like an OP stack for the EVM, which is but for the SVM, which is the combination of the SVM and the MPL, which provides that underlying asset protocol. And there's a good reason why these chains are being built. The SVM is the fastest engine on the track. Like, if you're really looking to build a performant blockchain and to take advantage of this technology, the teams that are really looking closely understand the value of the Solana virtual machine and what that will allow them to build with these specific chains. And it's an interesting time. Like, I think what we're seeing with Hyperliquid and with Plasma and others, there's a lot of innovation happening with these more vertically integrated, sort of specialized chains, and we're starting to see that same type of experimentation happening in the Solana and the SVM ecosystem.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. That you're such a necessity in this space that teams can't launch on new chains without you. That seems like a deep moat. Are there any other moats that you see with the protocol?
Well, like as Anatoly would say, like, the only real moat is hard work. So I would say that's our internal mindset, is like it's an earn it game. And you look, we've been here since 2021, and that's not an accident. We survived FTX and the blow up, even though Alameda Research was one of our first investors, and we did that on the back of just hard work and determination. But ultimately, being at the asset layer really does give us the ability to think in an innovative way across the ecosystem. And I think actually has been one of the superpowers of Solana generally, which is when we're looking at new asset classes, like we're looking at equity tokenization, we're looking at stable coins, we're looking at IP tokens. We can create the standard, we can update the Metaplex program library, which are all the supporting contracts, and then we can distribute that out through our SDKs and our developer tools. And now the thousands of applications that are built on us can immediately integrate with these new technologies. And the EVM is just structurally different. Everyone's deploying their own smart contracts. There's a ton of fragmentation. There are really tricky indexing problems. And so I think I like to think of that, like that foundational layer and space that we occupy as a real advantage for the entire ecosystem, because it allows us to then innovate at the asset standard layer and then bring that value up the stack to the applications and users on top of it.
Yeah, 100%. We're coming up on time. One last question. What's next on your roadmap, and what does success look like?
Well, we're coming out of this period with Genesis where we've just seen incredible success and demand for on-chain token launches. So as I mentioned, Play Solana, their Play token, will be going live later today. And now we're really focused on scaling that offering and bringing it to a larger community of projects and founders. And so, if you're listening to this and you're a pre-TGE team that's planning a token launch, come find us. We're downstairs. And we'll be here for the week, or you can reach us on X or wherever. We're terminally online. But that's really where we get our energy, is helping support new founders, whether that's at the token launch or once you've launched building with Metaplex in terms of creating digital assets. And we're going to continue to do what we've always done, which is follow that inspiration and supporting those great teams. And excited to see where that leads us.
Okay, love it. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.